Hey, what up everyone, this is Mondo Day back with another video, and in this video I'll be going over my build guide for Gambit. I'll be going over which artifacts I use, which uniques I use, as well as which medallions and insignias, as well as go over my PowerPoints, where I place them, my Omegas, and Hero Synergy or Power Synergy, I can't remember what they're called, but anyways, I'll be going over that, and at the very end kind of go over my rotation, give you some tips and pointers as far as how I was able to pass Cosmic Trial with using around 3,500 or so Omegas. I think I use around 3,700. Not too sure exactly, but again, I'll be going over that at the very end of the video. But yeah, this is my build guide for Gambit, so let's get into it. So the first artifacts that I use is Scroll Nyx Fury's Eye Patch. I use this for the defense rating, the damage rating to bosses, and health. Then I use White Suit Jacket for the defense rating, the damage rating, and health. Very similar to Scroll Nyx Fury's Eye Patch. Then I'm using Crossbones Medallion for the +1 fighting, deflect rating, attack speed, not so much for the physical damage, but for the energy damage rating and +1 energy. This medallion is really good for him because, again, it gives you +1 fighting and +1 energy, since this build is energy based, so it's perfect for him. Then I use Hand of Nimrod artifact for the damage rating to range powers, attack speed increase, and recover 3.2 spirit when you hit. And last but not least, I'm using the Book of Demonicus for the +3 to all attributes, and then when you hit with the basic power, gain 50 damage increase, and it stacks up to 25 times. I said this in another video recently regarding this artifact. This is a really good artifact because, again, it gives you +3 to all attributes, which is perfect for any character. So hence why I have it on here. Now regarding uniques, I did use all of his uniques. As you can see here, these are all his uniques. But I will say this though, I did have to get blessed some of his uniques because, for instance, for slot 2, 3, and 4, I got it blessed where I increased my defense rating, and for slot 1 and 5, I increased the energy damage. And I'd rather be honest in the front, and did this because he is a bit weak. He's a bit fragile, so just keep that in mind. But again, I'm letting you guys know that I did bless him. You don't have to, but I did bless him. And again, I use all of his uniques. For the ring, I'm using Industrial City Ring, energy base. I'm using this for the critical rating to energy tax, increase your attack speed and critical damage rating and health. For the costume, grade 1 through 4, the critical damage rating as always. And for the core, I have it to where when I use a medikit, I become invisible for 3 seconds, and also regenerate 205% of my health and 100 spirit. And also, I got 1,000 defense rating as well too. So for him, I would highly encourage you to, well, maybe not so much this medallion for the spirit. I mean, for this core for the spirit, but more for the health kit, because he is a bit weak, like I mentioned, and so you want to have your health as high as possible. So keep that in mind. He is a bit weak. And then for Insignia, I'm using Insignia Phoenix. I'm using this for when you hit with the range power, you and your allies gain 147 energy damage rating and +1 energy for 8 seconds. And also this gives me Brutal Strike rating and extra health. Once again, just to reiterate, he is a bit weak, so you want high health, either high health, defense pretty high, or just have regenerating health pretty good. And for the pet, I have it to where I take 2% less damage from energy area powers, 40 spirit increase, and +3 energy. Forged 800 defense rating, and I have it blessed to where I gain 200 damage increase to range powers and energy damage. And for legendary, I'm using Cosmic Control Rod for its energy base. I'm using this for the energy damage increase, regenerate 500 health when you defeat an enemy, and +2 energy. Look at the PowerPoints. Left to right, top to bottom. Stress sweep, street sweep. Max it out. Royal flush, max it out. Deadman'shand, max it out. Kinetic control, max it out. 10 to sleight of hand. It's passive. Savage expert, max out. 11. It's a passive. Signature, max that out. House of Cards, max that out. 1 for Cheat Death, 1 for Sticky Fingers, and then Raging Cahoon, max that out. It's a passive as well, and also it's a buff. For Megas, I use 86 3,700 or so, give or take here and there. So I'm showing you guys. Oh, girls, excuse me. Arcane Attunement, 5/2 Doom's Mystic Armor for the brutal damage, brutal strike rating, critical hit rating, and damage rating to energy attacks. Interstellar Exploration, 1 to Earth for the base damage increase, 1 for the Eagle, the Living Planet for the +1 durability, speed, and energy increase, and then 1 for Nowhere for, 1% chance to call support from Star-Lord's ship, which gives you some energy damage. Special Weapons, 2 do tag rounds for when you hit with a range power, gain critical hit rating, and then obviously Assault Rifle, 1 there for the base damage, increase your range powers. 1 for Focus Plasma Cannon, for when you hit with a range power, gain 8 physical and energy damage rating buff. And also Fury's Needle Gun, 1 there for the attack speed increase and also the cost reduction in range powers. 3 to Warpath for the fighting, 2 to Sunfire for the energy, base energy damage increase, and then Frenzy, 1 there for the melee power since he is melee, because one of the moves that I'm using is melee. So when you use a melee power, you gain critical hit damage rating. Nanotechnology, 5 to Spintake for the damage rating to bosses. Psionics, 6 Melt Phase for the brutal damage rating. Molecular Adjustment, 4 to Anti-Genesis for the +4 energy, deflect rating, and mental defense rating, excuse me. And then 3 to Exogenesis for the base energy damage increase, energy defense rating, and also regenerate health when you hit with an energy power. And that should be all. Hero Synergy, 1 for Cable for the critical hit rating. Not so much Deadpool, I would definitely remove this, but Deadpool in this case I had it at the time, I would definitely change this. Dr. Doom for the increase to signature power. Hawkeye for the move speed and critical damage. Iron Man for the range and energy damage increase. Rogue for health on hit and 1 spirit on hit. Squirrel Girl for the damage rating to bosses. Star-Lord for the critical rating to energy powers. War Machine for this +10 spirit and fighting, and then Wolverine for the brutal strike and brutal damage rating. I would definitely remove or change Deadpool for something else, possibly Thor or something like that, or even Vision. But I would definitely change Deadpool. But again, I'm just showing you guys what I had when I recorded the Cosmic Trial video. This is what the Hero Synergy points. This is where I placed them. So. Now let's get into the good stuff. I'll show you my rotation. Once again, he is a bit weak, but he can do pretty amount of damage. My team up is King Thor. Keep that in mind. Now, regarding my rotation, it's pretty simple. He can be weak, and I'm reiterating it so many times regarding his weakness because you have to keep moving. Hence why if you watch my Cosmic Trial video, I moved a lot. So just to get this out the way, Wild Card is my basic, World Flush, Deadman's Hand, House of Cards, Street Sweep, or Raging Cahoon signature, and then number 2, then I have Cheat Death. So I use Wild Card whenever I'm low on Spirit, which doesn't occur a lot, but I do use Wild Card whenever I'm low on Spirit. And then I activate Cheat Death just to get crowd control immunity. I always activate that whenever I can. Alright, so let's get into it. Now before we get into this as far as my rotation, just a key note, I'm going to explain to you some of the powers and what they kind of do, and then I'll go over my rotation. Because once you understand what some of the powers do, then you have a really good understanding why I chose these powers and so forth. So I won't go into full detail because I don't want to bore you guys, but I'm explaining it so that way you guys get an understanding. So I'm using Royal Flush because I use this just for the increase of damage to range powers. What this power does is it increases 16% to your range powers for 8 seconds. And so every time you activate Royal Flush, it gives you that buff. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to activate this, and I want you to see that I'm going to get that buff. See right there? Where your range powers deal more damage. So if you watch my Cosmic Trial video, I'm always using this like twice because I want to ensure that I get that buff, which is a 16% increase to range powers. So again, I'm going to use Royal Flush, and I want you to see the buff that occurs right here. See? Okay. Number 2, Deadman's Hand. Now, this power, what it does is it's it fires with this power. When you activate this power, it fires an additional card per consecutive use. It starts at 2 cards and up to maximum 5 cards. This resets after 5 cards of not using, after 5 seconds of not using Dead Man's Hand, and then it does an explosion. So what this means is that every time he uses, it does, and it consecutively, it increases the amount of cards. You see the explosion? That explosion does an extra damage of almost 150,000 for every 5th card thrown. And so I'm explaining this because this is a really strong and pretty good power. So when you incorporate Dead Man's Hand with Royal Flush's buff, that explosion does even more damage. So it looks something like this. That buff activated. And also too, the way you can tell is also it keeps you count too. Like for instance, this is 4 right now. I'm gonna do another one. And there's an explosion. See? That's how you can tell. These all gives you buff, and the good thing it tells you here in the buff section. So again, I'm gonna use Dead Man's Hand, and I want you to see another buff open up. Number 2, 3, 4, and then when I do 5, it's gonna do explosion. That's the explosion. See what I mean? Okay. The next thing is another power use house card. This is very good and very strong because what this does is it does a lot of area damage, and what it does, it kind of throws cards on the ground and then it does an explosion. Pretty simple. So I'm going to activate the cards right here, and you're going to see that it's going to drop some cards and then it's going to explode. See, it didn't only do damage, but see how these cards are on the ground? It's going to line up and explode. So try to activate this whenever you can. But again, I'm explaining to you guys that way you guys can see it. Next, I'm using Street Sweep. Even though this is melee and this is a range build, this is an energy damage based power. And this is really good because what it does is it does area damage, and it's kind of like, I'll just show you what I mean. See? And it does damage over time as well too. So what I usually do with this power, and again, I'm kind of going a little ahead, but I try to activate this power whenever I can. I make it that area damage. And damage over time, and then just do my repeat. But I'll go over it in a bit. So again, so with this power Street Sweep, I'm using this for the energy damage and its damage over time. So what that means, I can literally activate it, and it's still doing damage. See what I mean? The next, I'm using Raging Cahoon. This is Cajun. I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly, so sorry about that. But this is a passive, but also this is a buff. This is a very, very good, very strong buff. This is one of the buffs that, if you're using Rogue, and if you're familiar with Rogue, you can kind of create your own power, so to speak. A lot of people would use this because of the buff. So what this buff does, it grants you 12 seconds, but what it does, it increases your energy damage. Okay, the buff is around 12 seconds long, and so again, what a lot of people do is they activate this buff. And again, the passive for this power is pretty good because it gives you critical hit rating, deflect rating, and total deflect rating, but more importantly, it gives you the buff, which is 12 seconds. And so I have it here, so every time I activate it, I get that buff. It looks something like this. Now I got that buff and I have 12 seconds. Okay, again, I'm just showing you guys. Next is a signature. I like his signature. Visually, it is awesome and it's stunning, but I'll be honest, it's a bit weak. It doesn't really do... It does damage, but it's not... It's very similar to Angela, which is... It's strong, but it's kind of a disappointing, kind of a bit of a letdown. But, again, but when you activate the signature, what it does, it gives you a buff as well, too. Okay, it gives you a buff with certain powers. It gives them an extra power. So, for instance, when you activate signature, the buff duration, you have 6 seconds, excuse me, that Dead Man's Hand, which is this power here, which is the 5th card with the buff. This one, the one I just explained to you guys. When you activate the signature, for 6 seconds, Dead Man's Hand always throws 10 cards. Okay? And there's other things too, like for instance, bow beatdown, you gain 20% attack speed and always critical hits. And also, it also increases your melee powers as well, 25%. Okay, so again, I'm explaining to you this so that way you guys get an understanding. But the main power that I have here that utilizes this buff is Dead Man's Hand, because again, this is a range build and energy based. So the only power that pertains, or this buff, the only buff that pertains to this signature, buff is Deadman's Hand. But again, I'm explaining to you guys. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to activate Signature, and then after that I'm going to use Deadman's Hand. For you guys can see what I mean. So, again, Signature, and then I'm going to use Deadman's Hand. Again, I'm just explaining to you guys, that way you guys can see what I mean. See, this buff right here. That's the buff right there. You guys saw it right here. It was a countdown. It's like a purple. That's the buff. So you have that many seconds. Okay. Now I'm going to be explaining to you my rotation. Again, I just was explaining to you the powers, why I chose them. Now let's get into the good stuff per se. The first rotation is pretty simple. Is activate Royal Flush, and I simply easily do that just by doing it twice to get that buff. Again, because this gives you a buff. Once that buff is activated, I activate House of Cards, and then I activate Street Sweep to get that damage over time, or stun, excuse me. Damage over time is stun. So it looks something like this. And again, Royal Flush twice, House of Cards, and then Street Sweep. And then move. And then do it again. Whatever. See that? And I do this so that way when I activate Royal Flush, I get that buff, and when I do, I get that House of Cards. Okay, first rotation. Second rotation is very similar to the first, but what you're going to incorporate is Deadman's Hand. Because again, you want to get that buff from Royal Flush, which is the 16% increased damage to range powers, and this does not only does it do energy damage, but also does an explosive damage as well too. So I think it was actually even damage. So what I usually do is Royal Flush, House of Cards, Street Sweep, and then do Royal Flush, and then do Deadman's Hand for a couple of seconds, and then Royal Flush again. So to repeat, first rotation, which is Royal Flush twice, House of Cards, Street Sweep, Royal Flush again to continue that buff, increase the range powers, and then Deadman's Hands. And then Royal Flush again, and then redo it again. Redo my first rotation, which is Royal Flush twice, and so forth. So it looks something like this. Sorry about that, completely messed it up, so let me do it again. So Royal Flush twice, House of Cards, Street Sweep, move, Royal Flush again, Deadman's Hands, Royal Flush twice again, Deadman's Hands a couple of times, and then once these powers are ready, and then you go back to my first rotation, which is Royal Flush twice, House of Cards, Street Sweep, move, Deadman's Royal Flush again twice, Deadman's Hands for a couple of times. Once these cooldowns are ready, and then go back into my rotation. And again, you always want to do Royal Flush because you want to get that buff. You want to continue that buff because this increases your range damage. And so if you watch my Cosmic Trial video, I'm always using Royal Flush and then Deadman's Hand a lot because again, I want that damage. I want that buff to increase the damage to Deadman's Hand as well as that explosion. Okay, so go back at it again. Twice Royal Flush, House of Cards, Street Sweep, Royal Flush, Deadman's Hand. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. Okay. Now, the next thing I would do is the next third rotation I'm going to do is very similar to what I did, but I'm going to incorporate the signature. But I'm going to incorporate the buff and the signature, which is Raging, Cajun, or whatever you want to pronounce it, and then signature. Okay. So here we go. So the way I would incorporate my third rotation is very similar to the second rotation, but is incorporating the buff and the signature. So the way it works is like this. My third rotation would be Royal Flush twice, House of Cards, Street Sweep, Royal Flush, Dead Man's Hands, and right away, Raging Cahoon, or Raging Cajun, whatever, signature. Once that's done, Royal Flush to continue that buff, and then just do Dead Man's Hand. And once the 6 seconds are over, then I know I can go back to my second rotation, which is so forth. Okay, again, my third rotation, it goes like this: Royal Flush twice, House of Cards, Street Sweep, Royal Flush. Sorry, I'm like completely confusing myself. The third rotation is like this: Royal Flush twice, House of Cards, Street Sweep, Royal Flush, Dead Man's Hands, buff, signature, Royal Flush, and then Dead Man's Hands until that last buff is over. It sounds confusing, but it's not, and I'll explain why I do it like this. So let's get into it. This is how it's gonna look. Okay, now you may be asking yourself, why did I do it like this? Why did I have it it sounds complicated, but it's not. But why did I do it like this? Simple. For this third rotation, it's the last one too. So, I want to continue Royal Flush's buff, which is 60% increase to range power. So I want to have that continuous. Okay, and so the reason why I said after you do the signature, once you activate the buff and do signature, do Royal Flush after. That way you continue that buff. And so when you do Dead Man's Hand, not only does it increase 16% damage, but also the signature also grants an additional buff to Dead Man's Hands, which again always throws 10 cards, meaning that every time you throw a Dead Man's Hands for that buff of 6 seconds from the signature, you're doing not only energy damage, but you're doing an energy explosion. So again, you're basically kind of stacking your buffs to stack your damage. Does it make sense? That's why I have it set up like that. And not only that, as I did the rotation like this, so that way you get the House of Cards explosion damage, but also 2, you get the damage over time and stun from Street Sweep. Because again, Street Sweep is very, very, very good. Utilize it a lot whenever you can, because it does damage over time and stuns. See what I mean? So you can do it twice. See what I mean? And look and it does it lasts for quite a while. And again, it just stuns him, and you can just activate it once, and he continuously doing damage. And that's why I have this kind of rotation. That's why you always want to have Royal Flush active. You always want to use it here and there, because you want to get that range damage increase. That's very good. I mean, the power itself is pretty good, but more importantly is that range damage, the power increase. Hence why I chose like that. And when you stack the Royal Flush's range power increase with the signatures buff increase for Dead Man's Hands, so when you activate Dead Man's Hands, it's going to do a lot of damage. See what I mean? So just to reiterate again, the third rotation it goes like this: Royal Flush twice, activate that buff, House of Cards, Street Sweep, Royal Flush, Dead Man's. You can even do Street Sweep if you want, or if not, you can just go right into it, which is Raging Cajun and then signature, and then do right after Royal Flush to continue that buff, and then just do Dead Man's Hands until that buff is over from the signature. See what I mean? So just do it again. So I'm going to do it again, just like I just said it. So. Okay, that was my mistake. I accidentally pressed Street Sweep as opposed to Raging Kaijun. But again, you can do it that way too. You can do exactly what I just did too, which is again, Royal Flush twice, House of Cards, Street Sweep, Royal Flush, Dead Man, Street, Raging, and then signature. That's perfectly fine. But if you do Street Sweep, if you include Street Sweep, you have to right away use Royal Flush, because you want to take advantage of Royal Flush's damage increase. And yeah, that's my rotation. I'm gonna do it again, but this time without Street Sweep, and just go right into buff and signature. can tell, let's just look here to your right. Okay, and that was again Royal Flush twice, House of Cards, Street Sweep, Royal Flush once, Deadman's Hands, Buff, Signature, or you can even skip Deadman's Hands after you do Royal Flush once. You can skip that, do Buff, Signature, and then do Royal Flush, and then do Deadman's Hands. It's up to you, but again, I'm just explaining. That's why I explained to you guys the powers, so you guys get the understanding or basics as far as how his powers go. But you can do it however you want. But again, this is my rotation. I feel like this is a really simple build, simple rotation. Sorry, I'm put this out the way. But again, he's fun. I like it, and I like this build. And it's simple. Once you understand the basics, it's pretty fun. And yeah, that is it. This is my build guide for Gambit. Again, this is the same build I use for Cosmic Trial, and this is the same build I use when I play with the raids and so forth. This might not be the best build, but again, it's good enough to where you can pass Cosmic Trial and do other things as well too with this build. If you have more than 3,000 Omegas, obviously it's going to be even stronger. If you have 4,000, 5,000, or even if you have 10,000, it's going to do a lot more better damage with Gambit. And yeah, again, this is just to kind of show you guys how I was able to pass Cosmic Trial with Gambit, kind of give you some pointers and tips regarding Gambit and how to play with them. And that's really it. But again, make sure you my advice would be keep a lookout for the buffs. I mean, if you're using the same exact build, you want to try Gambit out, try this build, but make sure you have this open. That way you can see the buffs. That way when you're when you're playing, you can see it, but then after a while you get used to it to where you have a good sense as far as when to change powers and so forth, change powers or whatever. Because again, once you get used to it, then it becomes second nature, so to speak. And yeah, that's my build guide for Gambit again. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comment section below. Any requests for certain characters, I am working on Psylocke. I did pass Cosmic Trial with Psylocke, but again, I don't know, something's wrong with my my shadow play, but it recorded the audio but not the video, so I have to redo it again, which was frustrating because it took me quite a while for me to pass Cosmic Trial with Psylocke, but I'll do it for you guys. But again, any requests for certain characters, please leave it in the comment section below. If this guide was very useful for you, or maybe kind of inspired you to kind of get Gambit, again, leave it in the comment section below. I'm always interested to see if people do enjoy these builds and so forth. If you want to see more videos of mine, or you want to keep up to date with my brand new uploaded videos, please subscribe to my channel. It really means a lot to me, and it does support the channel a lot. And yeah, this is my build guide for Gambit. Hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something new from Gambit, and hopefully enjoy playing with Gambit with this build. Alrighty, on to the next one.